Hey, I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome back to Bellemont Zoo, where today we're going to be building a habitat in a style that we've never built in before, Japanese. We've got an undeveloped area between the reptile house and the adventure playground, and we're going to build a habitat for the Tanuki. We've never built a habitat in a full-on Japanese style before, so I'm looking forward to this. We've got quite a decent-sized area here, so what I want to do is theme the whole area around the Japanese garden, so both inside and outside the habitat will be themed, and we can get a little area here to set the scene for the pair of Tanuki that are going to live here. These gravel paths mark the boundaries of the habitat, and now we can start building the garden. So there are four main features in Japanese gardens: rocks, water, plants, and moss. They love a bit of moss in Japanese gardens. We're not really in the right climate in Bellemont Zoo to have loads of moss everywhere. It's a lot drier in Central Europe than it is in Japan, but we can certainly take care of the other three. And the way I want to do it is to have a Japanese-inspired building at the back, which can be their indoor habitat, and then we'll have a little ornamental pond in the middle of the habitat, and then surround it all with beautiful rock work and planting. And then we're going to theme the paths and give the habitat its own little entrance as well, so we get a little slice of Japan in this part of the zoo. We'll deal with the pond first. I want the water to be higher than the level of the ground so that it's really visible to the guests from the path. So what we need to do is build a little hidden glass wall that we can put the water into. So we'll build that in the rough shape that we want, and then we'll need to individually move each of the panels of the glass downwards to meet the water. There's always at least one that the game won't let you move, which is really annoying, but we'll just keep doing this. You can see it here. That one won't move down, and neither will this one. It seems to be random which ones it'll let you move, so there'll always be at least one you can't move, which is fine. We'll cover it up with rocks or something like that. If there's too many of them that it won't let you move downwards, then just delete it and start again and see which random ones come up this time until you get a shape you're happy with. So that one there's a few too many still sticking up, so I'll replace that in a second. But you can see the concept. We've got the water slightly above the level of the ground, so it's nice and visible from the path here. And then we'll move on to the main barriers. So we're going to have alternating rock walls and glass viewing windows throughout the habitat, and then we'll just use null barriers to fill in the rest of it. And once those are all done, we can move on to the entrance to this little area. For the entrance, we're going to build a torii, a traditional Japanese gateway. These are originally for Shinto shrines, I think, but are quite popular for any sort of Japanese theming these days. We've got a piece specifically designed for those, or a few pieces actually, in the East Asia set. So we're going to use one of those, but try and make it a slightly smaller and less overly themed version than the one you'd normally create in the game. So using more natural wood. This is based on an early example of this kind of thing which I saw in my research. Just using various wood pieces. Super simple, but once it's surrounded by plants and trees, it's going to look really nice there. I want this gate to frame the habitat as the guests walk up to it. So if we take a look at it here, you'll be able to see the building and the garden through it as you walk up to it. Let's get back to the little pond and start making that look good. I've redone those barriers, so now we've only got a little bit that we couldn't get as low as we want, and we'll make sure that those are all covered up with rocks. We're going to use this rock from the Oceania pack to surround it and cover up the glass, and then we'll put some much larger rocks in and around it to break up the look of it and get it looking like an ornamental pond that you might see in a Japanese garden. So you can see how the rocks go up a little bit on the left-hand side to cover up the barriers, and then we'll start dropping in some of the natural rocks from the Tempera and Tiger sets to get a kind of half natural, half man-made kind of look to it. We're also going to use the stone walls from the East Asia set to create a border. This building set is so good, probably the best set in the base game, I think. I've hardly ever used it because we've never built in a Japanese fashion. By the time we started building Asian-inspired builds on this channel, we had the tropical pack and a lot more suitable options. I actually got a bit paranoid about this habitat as I was building it, because by about halfway through, it really looks like something from kind of Planet Zoo Day 1, because everyone used to build everything out of this set because it was probably the best set in the game at the time. Luckily, I realised we just needed to do loads of detailing with pieces that weren't from this set, and we'd get something looking a lot more original by the end. We're going to build a bridge here so the Tanuki can cross the water, although they can swim as well if they want. And this is taken directly from a Japanese garden that I was looking at. Really like this design of 3 long pieces of stone next to each other and then a break halfway across the bridge. It's quite a striking design, so I thought we could use that. And we'll have a water feature as well, big feature in Japanese gardens, so going to use some of the waterfall special effects pieces. Don't want something as big as the actual waterfall piece, so we'll just use the little special effects pieces to create some splashes. We'll drop in some some of the underwater rocks that we made for the red deer habitat back in the forest, and then we'll start decorating it with bamboo. Really want to get the temperate vibe of a Japanese garden here, which will be appropriate for the tanuki. I'm also thinking of asking the people that live in those houses outside the zoo here if they'd mind remodeling them in a more of a Japanese style to suit this habitat, but that might be a bit of an overreach. I want a cherry blossom tree in the middle, and none of the ones we've got are quite big enough, so I'm going to combine the dead cherry blossom tree with the largest just to get a custom tree there, and we'll cover up the join with some more bamboo. And then we'll move on to the building. I want a Japanese style circular window for the tanuki to get in and out of the building, but on the plaster piece with the circular window in it already, it is really big, so I thought we'd make a smaller one using some of the new pieces from the Asia Animal Pack. These are the LED pieces, but they're recolorable, so we're going to create a circle with those, get them colored to more of a natural wood color, and then we'll get rid of the plaster walls and replace them with plaster panels that we can rotate around the circular window that we've made until we get a seamless hole in the wall with the wood style surround. Despite the enormous hitboxes in the game, we can still get the tanuki through this little hole in the wall as long as we have them climb through it rather than walk through it. We're going to use logs and some climbing pieces so that they can get through this, and due to the fact that for some reason the hitboxes are much smaller when they're climbing than when they're walking, they'll be absolutely fine to get through here. Because the plaster pieces are pretty small and they don't have a particular pattern on them, we don't have to spend ages working out exactly how to rotate them around this. We can just do it manually, place them in, spin them around a bit and line them up with the edge of it, and then we'll cover up the gaps with a larger piece of plaster, and that's the little sort of door slash window thing done, and we can move on to making this building look a bit more attractive. So I'm going to go with a pale yellow, which is quite popular in Japanese gardens. Really nice colour for the building, goes nicely with the dark wood, and then we'll put a clay tile roof on, again just using the East Asia set. We'll use the corner pieces to create an edge, and then later on we'll put a sloped roof on top of it as well. The way it slopes downwards into the centre here will be covered up with the next bit of roof that we put on. And then finally we'll add some of the East Asian water wheel spar or something it's called. It's a really nice natural wood piece. Looking good, and then we'll get back to the animal side of the habitat and add some climbing. We're going to keep this pretty simple for once, just a couple of platforms attached to the tree with some logs between them so that the tanuki can climb up here, get onto each platform. We'll have an enrichment item or something to persuade them to get up there, and then we're going to put a more formal water feature in, again copied from something I saw in a Japanese garden. So a simple piece of bamboo that's going to pour water into the bowl at the bottom. And we're going to use the top of this bucket. It's a piece I've definitely never used before, to hold the bamboo onto the rocks and keep it in the right position. And then we'll use one of the special effect pieces to squirt some water through the bamboo and into the bowl. While we finish that off, I've had quite a lot of comments recently about how many more animals are going to be going into Bellemont Zoo, because we are running very low on space. So let's talk about that for a minute. We do still have room for a few more animals. I've updated my plans a little bit since the release of the Asia Animal Pack, as you'll have seen in the last episode where we added in the macaque and the black buck. This little area here was originally going to be for Asian small-clawed otters, but when the tanuki was added, I really wanted those into the zoo, so they've taken that spot. But I think we are still going to have otters. I have another spot in the zoo set aside for those now, along with another pretty sizable animal that I'm really excited to add into the zoo. They will be going into the spot in between the Madagascar house and the lions, and there might even be room for one more animal from the Asia Animal Pack in a spot in the zoo I've been changing my mind on about 1 million times since I started designing it. If we can squeeze those in as well, we will do. Alright, we're just finishing off the viewing windows in here. The habitat is starting to look pretty nice now. Let's get on to detailing and planting. So we're going to put in some of the new bamboo lanterns from the Asia Animal Pack, and then put some wood boards around the bottom of the walls of the building for contrast, and then we can start putting some more rocks into the outdoor part of the habitat. Such a big feature of Japanese gardens, little arrangements of rocks, so we want lots of those. And then we're going to start putting some Japanese trees in to really frame the view. So we got some of the Japanese maple here, and we'll get these in precisely the right place to frame the view between the gate and the habitat wall and the building. And we'll put one on the other side as well, so it forms almost like a kind of tree tunnel that you look through. If that one's in the right spot, we'll copy it and move it over here. Do the same thing over here so we can get the view absolutely perfect. I don't want to cover up the cherry blossom tree either. I want to make sure that that's visible. We'll just move it a touch to the right, and there we go. Next up, I thought it would be cute if there was a little kind of pathway for the tanuki to kind of walk around the habitat in with some buried rocks. Another thing you often see in gardens, just the rocks just kind of slightly poking up above the surface. So if we run those around, Obviously they'll be able to walk all over the habitat wherever they like, but that just kind of looks cute that they have a little pathway there. These Oceania rocks are so versatile, using them for two completely different things in the same habitat. We'll put some metal pieces down the side of the glass so it looks like it's properly fixed into the walls, and then we'll use this little wooden piece from the Zookeeper's animal pack. If we colour it grey, we can make it look like rock. That'll sit nicely on top of those walls, just add a bit of detail. Sticks out like a sore thumb like this, but a quick colour change and that is going to sit in really nicely. With that done, we'll add in the obligatory buffalo grass. Got to cover every habitat with this. And once we've got the habitat covered and then we sink it down, that really starts to bring it to life. Next up, I want to add in some traditional Japanese lanterns. I really like this one, but it does have a naked flame in the middle of it, which is not really what you want in a habitat. So what we're going to do is cover up the flame part with the top of one of the other Japanese lanterns and match the colours, and we get a unique little lantern that we can scatter throughout this habitat. There we go, looking good. We'll have a couple of these just in different little spots in the habitat that'll further sell the Japanese garden vibe. We'll do a bit of detailing around the window/door that the Tanuki used to get in and out of the habitat. You can see we've got the login as well, so they can actually climb in and out of it now. And speaking of climbing, according to the Zoopedia, to keep the Tanuki in, you need a 3 meter high non-climbable wall. I've got no idea where Frontier have got that number from. I couldn't find a care manual for the Tanuki, and I couldn't find any information online about how high they can jump. But when I was looking at real habitats in ZooChat, I could see some with glass walls of about the height that you see in this habitat here, maybe 125 centimeters, something like that. If you know more about Tanuki's abilities than I do, please let me know in the comments, because I'd really like to know if the walls we have here are sufficient or not. Time to head inside the habitat and get this sorted out. Tanukis are primarily nocturnal, so they'll probably be spending quite a bit of time asleep during the day when people are visiting the zoo. So we've got viewing into this inside habitat through a couple of circular windows just behind where the camera is here. We'll put a floor in. And important to remember in Planet Zoo that the terrain that the animals are standing on affects their behaviour. So if herbivores are stood on grass, they will occasionally nibble away at it. If meerkats are on sand, they'll dig burrows into it. So I don't know what the Tanukis do on the various different terrain types as I build this, but I'm going to paint the rock texture underneath these floor panels just to make sure that if they have any interactions with grass or sand or anything like that, they're not going to be doing them here. And once we've got those in, we'll move on and make some little sleeping boxes for them. So we did something similar to this for the kiwi at San Bernardino Zoo. The Tanuki use the burrow, so we're going to put a burrow down that they'll crawl into, and then we're going to build a little kind of nesting box around it so they've got somewhere to sleep at night. And the way the burrow works is you can really cover up most of the entrance and they'll still be able to get into it. It doesn't follow the normal rules of their hitboxes. So we can start building just a very simple nesting box out of some of the twilight wood pieces, and we'll cover up most of the entrance to the burrow, and we'll get quite a natural looking little nest box for them there, and then we'll just copy it next to them, and we can add the finishing touches to this build. One of the things I saw a lot of in my research was plants in an almost kind of perfect little semisphere, and some of the topiary pieces do really well for that if we sink them down. I'm not sure exactly what plant it is. You can let me know in the comments what sort of plants normally look like this, or whether they are cut to look that way in the Japanese gardens, but the topiary bushes do a great job of standing in for those. We'll also put some of the temple pieces around as little kind of stepping stones, some appropriate flowers, and that is our little Japanese area done. Let's take a look at it. Here come the Tanukis. They are so cute. I've only seen these once in real life. Hope to see them again in a zoo soon. I love the way the cherry blossom tree casts a reflection into the pool. You can see the Tanuki on the bridge there, and then one up in their tree. Put one of the tennis balls up here to encourage them to climb, because there's not really anywhere else for them to go up here. But it does give them a pretty imperious view across the rest of the zoo. You can just see the children's playground in the background. I thought this would be a really appropriate spot for a cute little animal. And we've got one trotting down their little path here on the way into their indoor habitat. Kept it pretty bare bones in here, inspired by my trip to Chester Zoo this week. Don't always go crazy on the indoor houses. And here he is getting into his burrow. This is where we started today, and just below the reptile house, this is where we are now. Next week, I've got something that we have never done before planned for the zoo. I'm very excited about it. It's going to take quite a lot of building, but I think it's going to add a new dimension into the zoo. Thank you so much for watching as always, and thank you especially to those of you who've joined the Explorers Club. Hit the join button on the channel if you want to see your name up here, and I'll see you again next week for some more Planet Zoo.